Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to thank everyone for tuning into our webinar. As we all know, the situation in Afghanistan is quite volatile. Many people are nervous about the Taliban due to their history, especially given the news and images of so many people trying to flee the country. So it's natural that everyone is kind of nervous and trying to figure out what to do and what's happening and what's the future for Afghanistan. The region has a long history of warfare. And at times, it seems it's never seen any peace at all. That's what it seems sometimes, right? When we see the constant news coverage of Afghanistan. So we wanted to bring on people familiar with the area who are from Afghanistan and those who still have connections on the ground to help us understand what's happening and what should we be expecting and what we are hoping and what's the future of Afghanistan holds. So having said that, I'm going to bring on our speakers, inshallah. Our first speaker is Dr. Dawood Nasimi. He's an associate professor of religion at Northern Virginia Community College, and he's also a visiting professor at Kabul and Salam universities in Afghanistan. He has a PhD in Islamic studies, and he serves the community as an Islamic instructor, scholar, and leader. And he's also the founder and former president of Islamic Society of Afghans in the Washington D.C. area. So without further ado, Dr. Dawood Nasimi. Dr. Dawood, can you put yourself off mute? Yeah.
Jazakum Allah khair, dear brother Ramiz Abed. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure to be in this forum and in this webinar and talking about a very important subject, the topic of Afghanistan that has got the attention of almost everybody in the world in the last few days. Indeed, the events of Afghanistan have made the headlines news of United States, all major media channels and all over the world. And it is something that kind of shocked a lot of us or surprised a lot of us. And it is really important because we all have certain questions and we all have, certain thoughts about what has happened, what is happening right now, and what will happen in the future, especially our Afghan-American community and Afghans and diaspora in general all over the world. They have special concerns, and Muslims in general around the world, and all other people, they have all kinds of questions and thoughts because of the extensive news coverage of this topic. So for those of us who do not have much of background, I'll give some introductory points about what has happened. So basically on August 15th, which was last Sunday, Taliban, a grown Muslim group in Afghanistan who was fighting the NATO forces in the last 20 years, took over the power, and they were fighting since 2001 after 9/11. And what happened, Taliban was ruling before that for 5 years, from 1996 to 2001. And when 9/11 happened, then there was, American forces along with other NATO forces who went to Afghanistan and removed Taliban from power and brought a new government. So Taliban since then started resisting and fighting against the NATO forces, and the fight was going on for the last 20 years. And Taliban, in the first time when they ruled for 5 years, they used certain strict and kind of extremist approaches for in certain areas that kind of scared people, and a lot of people were worried that what if Taliban comes back to power, what would happen? Also because there was a lot of propaganda, a lot of coverage of Taliban in a negative way by the government in Afghanistan and by all other forces that they were fighting with Taliban. And Taliban so got a very bad name for that. And when Taliban were fighting against Americans in the France in the combat way, that was one thing, but they also used some suicide bombings to target, the American forces and others in the cities. And that led to a lot of civilian casualties, which was really, gave very bad image of Taliban to almost everyone in the cities. And so with that kind of concern and fear about Taliban, the coming back of Taliban in power, became a major concern. Now, Taliban, when made a peace deal with, Trump's administration last year in February of 2020, and according to that, all the forces were supposed to withdraw within 14 months by May of 2021. But when Biden came in power, Biden extended that a little bit, and overall he agreed with the peace deal. So he said by end of August or September 11, I'm going to remove all the forces. When he announced that and the withdrawal started more seriously in the last 3 months, the fighting was more intensified and Taliban made much more advances. And they took many governmental districts without fighting. Many districts surrendered them to Taliban, and Taliban started taking major cities and provincial capitals in early August. And within 2 weeks, they basically captured most of the country and most of the major cities. And on August 14th, they arrived at the gates of Kabul, the capital. And when they arrived in the gates of Kabul, they sent a kind of notice and warning to the government that we are here, but we're not going to enter Kabul until there is a kind of agreement for a peaceful transfer of power. So they order all of their forces to stay around Kabul. But the next day, all of a sudden, the president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, he fled, and then all of a sudden there was a power vacuum in the country. And because of that, some other political leaders, like the former president Karzai and Abdullah, the head of the Peace Council, and Hikmatyar, one of the political leaders, the three of them went to the palace and assured people that, things will be okay, because everybody was really worried that the president is gone and what would happen. And then they spoke to Taliban leaders and say, because there were some few Taliban in Kabul and in the presidential palace. So they said, how could we distinguish whether these are real Taliban or not? So the leader said, okay, we're going to send more forces, and they come inside. So they came to the presidential palace and they took the city of Kabul in total by the next day. So that's how it happened. And then, this kind of coming of Taliban all of a sudden to Kabul and taking over was a big shock for the whole international community, and even for Taliban themselves, because they did not expect to come inside, at least for some time. This is what happened. And based on the background of Taliban and based on the publicity that was done about them, almost everybody, especially in the Western world and even in Afghanistan, a lot of people were worried and very much concerned that, what would happen. But the first thing that Taliban announced was that there's a general amnesty, and no one will be punished or arrested or persecuted for any kind of things that they have done in the past or prosecuted. So they this announcement, they repeated several times that, and they even gave some notices that if anybody enters your houses, it's not us, and they give phone numbers to call us if anybody comes to your homes. Following that, then they made some additional announcements that was about government employees, that they can all return to their jobs, all the security forces and military forces to come back to their jobs and assume their jobs and resume their jobs without any fear, which was really a big thing, because all the employees of the government were terrified. And also they announced the freedom of media and speech, and they asked the media to resume their broadcasting. So many major TV channels such as Tulu News and Ariana News and Shamshad and Kabul News and in national TV, they all started broadcasting. That was that broadcasting really brought a lot of assurance for people, because they saw that these news channels, they are broadcasting things against Taliban, for Taliban, and so they did not report any censorship, that Taliban are censoring the media, which was a big also surprise for a lot of people. And also they made some announcements about women that our next speaker, Sir Nasreen, will focus on that they assured basically the women. And also they announced that we're going to form an inclusive government. So it will not be just a Taliban government. We will include other people so that everybody can see themselves in the government. And that was also a big surprise for everybody, that, wow, Taliban can do that and will do that. And until today, people are questioning that, but they have made that promise. And to fulfill that promise, they started talking to different political leaders, and they've been going around and consulting different people. And they are saying very soon they will announce that government. Also, they treated certain minorities like Shia communities in the country in a very surprising way, especially when the day of Ashura, or 10th of Muharram, was celebrated. Shias all over the country or in major cities, they had that celebration, and Taliban made sure to have their security and ensure their security. So and also there was some protests by some people on the streets, and Taliban did not prevent people from protests, and they even listened to their demand that they were asking the flag to be remained, and said, okay, we'll keep the flag. So these kind of measures that they took really were surprising to everybody, and it was really very interesting that they are not doing what we expected or what we thought they would do. And now there are all kinds of questions that what happened, why these surprises. There are three possible factors here that can explain that. Taliban themselves, they are saying that we have taken our lessons from last time that we ruled, and we're not going to repeat our mistakes. That's one factor. Another factor that it's a different new generation of Taliban. Many people in the current groups of Taliban that they talk and come in the media, they were very young or too young in the last time, or they were not even born, some of them. So it's a new generation, and who have been exposed much to the world events, and they are more up to date with what's going on or what's expected in the world. And third, that because of social media and others, they know that everybody is watching and everybody's reporting everything. So because of that, you see these changes that Taliban have come. Another major question that a lot of people ask, how come all of a sudden this military that was built by Americans, which was supposed to be very strong military, about 300,000 soldiers, what happened that all of a sudden they all surrendered themselves without any fight? So to answer this question, there are at least three factors involved that can explain. First, that these troops were not happy with the government. It was obvious because a lot of times their salaries were not paid, while the government were taking the full salaries of all the military staff from American sources, and maybe they would put it in their pockets and they would not give the salaries to the military. And also the corruption that was in the government, they all were questioning, should we defend this kind of government, this corrupt government? And that was one factor. Second, that they were convinced that they cannot win this war. They were convinced because for the last 20 years, they knew that with all the NATO forces, we fought them, and not only we could not defeat them, but they became more and more powerful and stronger. So that was the second reason that they said, our fighting basically will be useless. We will not win. They had lost their morale. The third factor is that they did not want to fight their countrymen. Especially when NATO forces now are out, and the pressure that was on them that go and fight with your countrymen, that was off their shoulders now. Why they should fight with their own countrymen? So these are some of the factors that they did not fight. There are many other things that inshallah will be covered by our dear panelists, Imam Jamal Kakar and Sister Nasreen. So I will suffice to these points, and if needed, then we will address some of the other points in our discussion or question and answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nasimi, for that insightful discussion. I think I learned a lot, definitely, and I hope our viewers did as well. Just a reminder to the viewers, you can put your questions in the comment section of the chat, and we will take them at the end, and we will present them to the speakers, inshallah. So just FYI. Our next speaker is Sister Nasreen Noori. She is an Afghan-American controller and director of operation in a high-tech company. She's also a member of National Association of Professional Women of Washington, D.C. She's also a member of Trademarks Who's Who, and she has an educational background in the field of finance. So without further ado, Sister Nasreen Noori.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity and the platform to talk to our own country people and also to the world about the situation in our country, and it's mostly concerned, people are mostly concerned about everything else but women right as well. First of all, I want to tell our women, I'm sorry to say that I'm sitting in America and tell you what to do, but please don't pick on that one. And I was not there in Afghanistan during Taliban the first time they were there. I heard stories, horrible stories. They were very harsh. And from what they have done so far, for keeping all the promises they have done, I'm hoping and I am very optimistic that they're going to keep their promise about women as well. But in the meanwhile, our women, the job is at this moment, because they're under world's radar, all the UN, all the human rights, women rights, everybody's there on the ground and watching them. Please take this opportunity, show up to work, go to school. Do not let the schools be closed. Do not accept do not make it the normal standard that women stay home. Please read about Sharia. Please do not go with the Sharia based on what you hear from media, from opposition. There are a lot of people that mistranslating this Islamic Sharia. We have a lot of rights under Islamic Sharia. We have equal right in so many places as human being. We have, Quran always, most of the places says An-Nas, which means people, human being, not women, not men. There are sections that are just for men and are just for women, but mostly it generally says Nas, which means people. So we are equal in a lot of places, a lot of rules, but there are, read the parts that the people taking a portion of it and they want to brainwash us. Please read and find out if it's the truth or not, and don't go based on the media. From what Dr. Nasimi also mentioned, from what the Taliban has kept their promises. They are in, if you can see the best example is the airport. They can, if they want to beat people, they can do there. They can shoot the airplanes. They can do this one. I see the interviews. People are there sitting there saying that I was working for American and I'm leaving the country. And they don't say anything. They check their papers if it's good or not to go or not, or not to pass there. So that is something that's a good opportunity that say they're keeping their promise. Let's hope that and help them to carry that promise. Let's and do not allow him to become the Taliban that we expect 20 years ago. And I strongly believe, and I hope that they have changed. And I can see that well, like Dr. Nassimi said, they were not to come to the capital and negotiate with the government, but they came and they kept their promise. They didn't enter Kabul until they saw that the Kabul security people left the buildings, even the international hotel that I saw last night, that the security left the premises. So the Taliban was to go there and keep the security for the place. And everybody they were interviewing, everybody was so happy. They were saying that, yeah, nothing was looted, nothing was stolen. We see those things even in America. This thing happens. Looting in here happens when wrong police shooting. You can see what happens in the US, but they have controlled that one. So let's give them a chance. Let's work with them, and let's do what is. I mean, right now during President Ashraf Ghani, women were wearing scarves, they were wearing hijab. So why not continue that one? Even women that came from the US and Europe were going to Afghanistan to work. They obeyed with the law, Islamic law. They wore scarves and Islamic clothes. I'm a woman that my mom is one of the 7 women to win high school during King's hijab. She was wearing burqa to go to school, but because education was important to her. At this moment, please let's not go with the fake ideas that some women brought from the Hollywood, which was not Afghanistan, was not our culture. It was very minority that will, and let's not follow that one. Let's follow our culture. Let's follow our. I know we have a lot of stuff in our culture that is not Islamic even. So let's give Taliban the chance to do this, and while we're giving him the chance, we have to watch him closely. We show up, we go to work, and if we see they're not doing what they're not doing, what they promised, please record it honestly. Do not make fake news. Plus, do not stop photoshopping and all that, because it's not only helping us, it makes it worse. I mean, I cannot even believe some of the news. It's so. One person is, I mean, majority I hear in the street, they are happy. And then I hear news is that they went door to door and took people out of the house. While I saw they went to one of the minister's house and they locked the door and told them that you're under the amnesty that they have announced, you can come to your house. They forgiven the warlord. They forgiven Ismail Khan. They have forgiven Ashraf Ghani. They have forgiven Marshal Dostum. So let's take this opportunity that they have forgiven people and forget about the past. Let's go further and for the future. Think about that. We are a very important part of the our society. We are, when we have to count ourselves, important. So that's for that purpose. Let's go to work. Let's go to school. Let's go to regular shopping, everything, but with Islamic clothes. So that is something that they want and something the majority of Afghanistan people wants. That's and if we can see how swiftly, how without any problem they came to Afghanistan, to the cities, then to the capitals and to the big cities and even to Kabul without any single shot. So that means that I take it myself as a blessing from God. I take it a blessing that God has blessed us. God has accepted our dua. Let's hope that's the truth. Let's help it and avoid any. I see some sisters that goes and with all the makeup and foundation, all those things in the street, and then they have videos to say, oh, I was not allowed here, I was not allowed there. I saw one video that the Taliban was telling the girls to cover up, and they were saying that, but that's because you're wearing. I mean, we don't see the whole thing. We have to find out those women were wearing very tight clothes. That's not acceptable, at least especially at this moment. It's not acceptable. Please follow the rules. Let our men also be safe, so they don't have to worry about us women, and all the concentration should not be on the women. As we can say, they came from women, right? Then they came with the flag, and we saw they came and they said that, okay, the flag, Afghan black, red, and green is still in the palace, and still there, but people are making all these opposition, the seculars, that we have communists who are still very active. They're making videos. They even a couple of them we can recognize, they're wearing Taliban clothes, and they're look, they come outside and they make I mean, they're showing one of the person that I think he imposed as a Talib, and he was showing him a microphone to say that, can you talk in this one? And the guy said, what is this? For God's sake, the guy knows that has a Kalashnikov. He has radar, and he's talking to people. How could he not recognize a microphone? So let's use our head. Let's not accept all the news that we receive from there, and let the honest people, the media, do their job and not listen to the fake news. And that will be help. We are here to help them. And if they cannot do it, that's a bigger help will be that we find that they are not keeping their promise. So right now, the whole world is watching them. So this is for that purpose. I mean, you can see that in the airport, they can shoot people there, but they're not. They have more weapons that they used to have before they took over the capital. They're not shooting people. They're not. They kept their promise because they told American, we're not going to shoot you. We're going to help the people that helped you even to leave the Afghanistan. I mean, I listened and watched the Jummah khutbahs, the last Friday khutbahs, that how nice it was, how many people showed up there. They were stuck, thousands of people showed up for the khutbah. That's a good news. Let's hear that people are happy with this. So, making fake news, it doesn't help. Please help and be with them to help them and introduce the real Taliban. And give him a chance, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Nasreen, for that discussion. So we will have Q&A afterwards, so people can put their questions in the comment section, and then we can review them with the speakers, inshallah. Okay, our last speaker for today, before we take the Q&A, is Imam Jamal Kakar. He's the Imam and President of Medina Islamic Center in Springfield. He's an instructor of Quran at Adams Center in Sterling, Virginia. His educational background is Islamic Studies from Libya, and he's a teacher of education from Northern Virginia Community College as well. And without further ado, Imam Jamal Kakar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I thank Brother Anis and ICNA for the chance to come on this wonderful platform and talk to a greater audience, inshallah, about the topic that we are all thinking about, we are all concerned about, and we have heard a lot about. And alhamdulillah, the two speakers explained and touched on so many important points and topics, and alhamdulillah, they have covered almost everything. I will just briefly take a few minutes to probably clarify a few things, and maybe a few things may be repeated, and some new ideas and things that I have to talk about. So the first thing I want to say is this change that just happened in Afghanistan is an extremely major and a very, very big change that happened after 43 years of non-stop continuous war. You know, a very big change, the magnanimity of which cannot be traced in the near past in the history. the United States and its all NATO allies had to sign a peace agreement with the Taliban movement, and as a result of which they had to leave the country, and in a matter of few months and then in weeks, this huge change happened, and that same Taliban that for 20 years NATO and allies were fighting came back to power. And alhamdulillah, our speakers all talked about how it happened. I just want to mention that, was this the best resolution, the ideal resolution to this decades-long conflict? Of course not. It wasn't the most ideal way, but now it's the reality, and we have to deal with it. Like Sister Nasreen just mentioned in full detail. Now, this is the new reality on the ground, and we have to come to terms with it and deal with it as Afghans inside and Afghan diaspora overseas, and as Muslim Ummah overall. Now, could this conflict be resolved differently? Of course, it could be resolved through peaceful and negotiated settlement, through a national accord, through which the power would have been transferred to an agreed upon administration. But unfortunately, due to many reasons that were just discussed, it didn't happen. And the power vacuum was created, and the Taliban had to take over, and this new reality is there on the ground. Now, we face, and the country faces, so many challenges, and so many issues are ahead. There are political and security and economic and so many other challenges on their hands. And this is a moment where one can think of, so what now? What should we do now? What course should we take now? As we are facing this new reality in Afghanistan, there are three ways, and we can see in the media, social media, in in our circles, in our community circles, and everywhere, the discussion. You may find a lot of people completely and fully, vehemently opposing the Taliban takeover and their rule. So for them, I would say, so what is the solution? Do we go back to resistance? Do you call for and advocate another decades-long war and the intervention of world powers so that they can topple and remove this new regime? And we know the consequences. We know the devastating consequences of that war would bring. That we have seen that in the past 20 years. Another course is that just accept the reality, the current situation, stay idle and do nothing, stay put, and accept whatever is coming. And a third solution, which, by the way, a lot of people have tendencies on both these points that I just mentioned. And a third one is, which Sister Nasreen just in detail mentioned also, is taking an active role, accepting this reality on the ground. And it is not imaginable, and no one in their sound mind can even think of another 20 years of bloody war to remove and to change the current reality. So what is a better course for Afghans and for Muslims in general is to take an active role of civic engagement. As we have seen, Taliban, coming up with more openness and more understanding. Yes, of course, there are faults and flaws and mistakes and and challenges, but we have the responsibility to engage in a civilized manner and to call for the security and justice for all without exception, and to use every means, especially now that the world is interconnected just like a village, and the internet and the social media and the traditional media in every other way. We should use every platform, every means to hold the new authority accountable, to push them to reforms, to push them to acceptance and openness, and to push them to reconciliation, and to really and truly gift the whole country with this peace and security that they are longing for the past 43 years. Generations have born in this war. They have been raised in this war. They have seen nothing but bombardment and killing and blood. So as concerned and Ummah, as concerned Afghans and Muslims, we should not turn our back on what is happening, but we should help them. We should do everything to educate them, to remind them of what their responsibility towards their countrymen, their people, and for the Ummah at large, and to go as the Sharia asks, the Sharia commands, the Islamic rules, Islamic principles command them of forgiving and forgetting and embracing, and having that the same approach that the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ, had with the enemies and those who oppose them, even harder and stronger than what happened in Afghanistan. So let's think positively and hope for the best. Yes, I'm not taking sides. This panel is not here to take sides. But what we are saying is, now we are in front of a new reality on the ground. And the only way to improve the lives of people is to engage with them, to critique them, to go ahead and criticize them, but in a civilized, in a more peaceful manner, not to cause any more chaos, not to cause any more uprisings, not to cause any more bloodshed. But we should be there in every way, and let's have be optimistic. The last point I want to mention is, before closing, is the disturbing images and the very chaotic scenes that we see coming out of the airport in Kabul. And I wanted to just take a moment and say, what is happening there. First and foremost, that airport is in the hands of the United States Army. It is still, as in agreement, is still under the control of the United States. And unfortunately, like all the other aspects of the war, since the beginning, from 2001 until this day, they have mismanaged and squandered everything. And the same thing is happening today in the airport. And the blame goes squarely on the United States Army and their political establishment and everyone else. They are unable to even manage that one spot in the whole entire country. And second thing I want to mention is, we see these images coming, these people running after flying airplanes, and they're hanging to different parts of the airplane, and they're trying to run away. Is that really the desperate situation in the country? Of course not. Absolutely not. And if you may have seen the images coming, they are mostly young boys, young people. And a lot of them are just from the streets and just in the hopes and the idea in their minds that we will get out of the country. We are going, overseas. I'm sorry to say that a lot of refugees that have come and will arrive, it is absolutely our responsibility as Muslims to embrace them, to be for them, to help them, to support them, to guide them, to do everything we can. But the point I'm trying to make is those images, those people that see so desperate, they're not under imminent danger. And a vast majority of them have no security danger, security threats for them. They're only in the hopes of going to Western countries, especially the United States. And this is the reality. And those images, that crowd does not represent the 34 states, the 34 provinces of Afghanistan, where there, for the past 1 week or more, not a single shot has been fired of the war, which is a great achievement. And I'm again saying that I'm not advocating or supporting anything that is Taliban is doing, but what I'm saying is the reality is reality. The fact is fact. People have now the security that they could not even think of in the presence of 43 countries, armies, intelligence, and all types of services. They were not secure, and even inside the Kabul, even behind the presidential palace, people were not secure. I was there just a few months ago, and you know what? You were going on the street, and you cannot even imagine using a cell phone in your hand and walking on the street. That was the situation. And these kidnappings and these inside the government offices and institutions, the briberies and all that has gone now. Let's give them time. Let's pray for the best. Be optimistic. Give them some time. But in the meantime, engage in civic engagement and push them and take them accountable. Whatever and however you can do. And there are hints, there are hopeful and positive hints, and that they have changed. They have to change. They will not be able to succeed. They will not be able to run the government if they don't change, if they don't have a more flexible approach to what they are doing. So inshallah, in the end, I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this country with the real, genuine peace and reconciliation, and that all segments of the society, regardless of their color, regardless of their language, regardless of their madhab practices, they are all embraced. They are all included in the future, making the future of Afghanistan. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Imam Jamal. So that concludes all the speakers' presentations. So now we will go straight to questions, inshallah. So I'm just going to go down the list here. So we have so I'll start with, so make sure your mics are unmuted. So I'm just going to go down the list. So we have first question from Brother Muhammad Abdul Jabbar. He says, why people have reluctance in trusting the promises and announcements of Taliban? So I guess we can start with you, Dr. Nasimi. Make sure you're unmuted.
Okay. So the question is why people cannot trust Taliban, right? So as we mentioned, Taliban does not have a very good history. Last time when they ruled, there were a lot of issues and problems. And while they did some great things there, in Afghanistan, a lot of people are very happy with a lot of things with Taliban, but they also did a lot of things that people are not happy with. I personally went to Afghanistan. I've been going for the last 5-6 years, except last year because of COVID. I have been going there for 2-3 months every year. And one of the main questions I was asking a lot of families that they were inviting me in different parts of the country or the city, and one of the main questions I was asking them in the last 40-50 years, which government has been the best government? Unanimously, I have got the answer that Taliban's government, in terms of two things. security and justice. Security, that they have established that no other government had that at the time of Taliban. And justice, if we had any issues, any problems, anything that somebody has taken our rights, our property, we would go to Taliban and they would resolve it like this, and we would get it without any kind of bribe, without any. This is what I heard unanimously from every single family that I asked. But yes, they are also complaining about the strictness of Taliban, about daily prayers that they were making people that you have to go and pray, and sometimes people would pray a second time, or the hijab or other things that they were enforcing in a way that was not a lot of people were not happy with in the cities. And sometimes they treated women in a way that was really scary for people. So they did certain wrong things that people have bad memories from it. That's one reason that now people are suspicious. And second, because of the publicity that was done, because it was considered an enemy by the government, by the United States, by others. So everybody tried to, publicize as much as possible against them in the last 20 years. As the CEO of Facebook, they admitted that in the last 20 years, whatever good was about Taliban, we did not allow that to go on Facebook, and we closed the accounts of everybody who talked anything positively about Taliban because they were an enemy to us. So it has happened, and also because people were worried that if Taliban come back, maybe they will monopolize the power and they will exclude everybody else. And last time that's what they did. So people are still worried. But as Imam Kakar beautifully put it, now that Taliban is here, whether we like it or not, whether we have any issues with them. So let's see, based on what they have said, and give them benefit of doubt for what they are claiming, and see if it happens. For example, they are talking about inclusive government. So if they really come up with an inclusive government, then that will be great, and that will be really a big change. Similarly about treatment of women and others. So if we really think in a constructive way and in a positive way, and think about it, that how this can be resolved, yes, we should be engaged, and yes, we should go after them if they do certain wrong things. And there are some individual talibs, we get some reports that they are doing certain things, wrong things, and of course they are not angels. There are some people, some bad apples here and there, but based on what I'm getting personal reports from my relatives and some friends over there, I think there is room for trusting them at this time a little better or more than before.
Okay. So we have another question from Kevin Amin. He says, does anyone on the panel have any insight on the prospective financial situations of Afghanistan, the reserves, the IMF funds, things like that? Does anyone know on the panel those details or no? Because then we can just skip the question.
I personally don't have any idea about that. I have heard the IMF has blocked the assistance and this, but you will see that type of pressure, that type of financial pressure from IMF and World Bank and other powers. It will happen, and probably that is one way of pushing Taliban to a more openness, more inclusiveness. But there is no doubt that these institutions will exercise such pressures. But I don't have any specifics to say about the funds from IMF or World Bank or other institutions.
Okay. Next question we have is from Muhammad Jabbar. He says, do the Taliban have any foreign elements in their ranks of leadership right now that we know of?
Doctor, as far as I know, in the leadership, no. I mean, all those leadership figures that we have known so far, I mean, they are purely Afghans. Yes, in the lower ranks, I mean, as in the past 40 years in the history of jihad in Afghanistan, Muslims from many different parts of the world have joined, and there may be elements, there may be people in the foot soldiers, but I can say one thing, that as far as I have heard and read and seen, those people are strictly under control, in their command. It's not like they have their own, like in the past, yes, some battalions, some groups, they had their own independent, makings and things. But this time, it's not the case. Otherwise, Dr. Samnasimi can also elaborate on.
I think, when we see the list of the people who are considered the political affairs group, who were based in Doha, Qatar, all of them are known to Afghanis, and they all know their villages, where they grew up, and everybody. So far, the people who have come forward as speakers, as leaders, Afghanis, they all know them, that based on their language, accent, culture, and connections, family connections, and the commanders all over the country, commanders of Taliban who have been fighting. So far, we haven't heard from Ashraf Ghani government or Karzai government or any U.S. Sources that they have captured a commander that's not Afghani, or other officers in the fight. There has been some reports or some claims by Ashraf Ghani government that there are some elements from neighboring countries here and there, but I'm personally interested to see that if there is, and as Imam Kakar said, it's possible that some individuals are there that they just wanted to join, but not as commanders that I have heard of. And I'm interested to learn if anybody has seen any officer, commander, anything.
Okay. Question for Sister Nasreen. Are you aware of any girls not being allowed to attend school or shutting down of any girls' school recently from Afghanistan?
Not at this time. That's what I've been in Facebook and wherever platform I'm asking girls to go out and go to school, go to there. If they're not allowed, please let us know. All I see is the 2 videos that they were not following the rules. So they were not allowed to go somewhere. That's the only 2 negative one. But I have not heard, and I'm begging people, please go there and give us that one. This is the time that we can tell if anything bad is happening. But also the women, I see they're going, actually yesterday my neighbor said they have, and from Kabul to Herat, 5 buses left in the morning and went back there, and they will have women on it. And one very interesting part, I sent to tell you, one of our singer, Ariana Saeed, was on Fox Channel yesterday. What she said, one interesting point that I was aware of what she was saying. When she was going to the airport, the Taliban stopped her car. They saw that there was women and children. They allowed her to pass. I'm sure if they recognize her because of the amnesty, they will not do anything to her. But she is saying that there would have been, that her talk is from the Taliban 20 years ago. But still, when I saw that, I heard that, okay, she was allowed to pass the net. I was believe that they're true to their promise.
Okay. But the Jamal, I think this point here is about your presentation. Most people are fleeing Afghanistan for economic reasons, not because of Taliban. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Like 99% of these people, not because of persecution, not because they are under threat, not because they are being chased or something. I mean, that this is a very fair statement that they are mostly going out for economic reasons. And a lot of times just because of the image, the Western image and all of that, and they have friends out overseas, and they're, and you may have seen the pictures and the things, mostly young people, that is the case. I totally agree with this.
Okay. What about the report? There were some reports saying that the reason there was such a big crowd at the airport was because the U.S. Government or maybe some presence there, they had announced that they will take a certain amount of people, and because of that news, I don't know whether it was a hoax or somebody just spread the message, or did they actually announce that they will take refugees overseas to a certain amount, and because of that, all that chaotic situation arose at the airport, and they were trying to get on that plane because they were promised that whoever is able to make it to the airport, they will take them. How accurate is this report?
Yeah, so there have been some reports. I personally read the announcement from the U.S. government that said that U.S. citizens, those who have worked with us, and those who are vulnerable because of any fear. This last category is important when they say anybody who is vulnerable because of fear of government or any kind of relationship with American agencies or work. So that category gave hope to a lot of people that they said, okay, I'm vulnerable, I'm in danger, and I can go or claim so. And also Canada announced that they will accept 20,000, at least such an announcement I saw. Whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. But Canada announced that we will accept 20,000, including certain minorities that they listed. And those who have really in danger. So now anybody can go and say I'm in danger, and a lot of people felt that I can justify that and I can go to the airport. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting to the airport, and once I get to the airport, then I have a chance to travel and get a visa to those countries. So they created the chaos to some degree themselves. And also, there were 6,000 troops in the airport, and you wonder that how they cannot manage. Even 100 people is enough to manage all those crowds, but 6,000 troops, and still those people are running after the airplanes and boarding the back of the plane and on the wings of the plane. It's very heartbreaking and very bad, sad scenarios. And Taliban keep telling them, there's amnesty, we have forgiven you, nobody's chasing you, why you are doing that? But people still have sometimes fear or sometimes that hope that I can still go.
Okay.
If I can add one thing, the latest information that I keep constantly in touch, as at least 5 of our close families are there. They traveled from here like about a month or 2 months ago, and they are stuck there now. So we get in touch, and the latest news is that Taliban have now improved the security around outside the airport, because inside it's still in the hands of the U.S. Troops, and outside they have organized and managed it in a much better manner. And now those who are leaving legally, or probably they have some type of documents and they are accepted, now they are not coming through the gates of the airport. The Interior Ministry is right next to, adjacent to the airport. Like Dr. Nassimi knows that, on the same road. So the evacuees are going through the inside the Interior Ministry, and from there the helicopter takes them off to the runway, to the airport. So it's and 48 hours they have shut down all operations just to organize. And this was, Taliban pushed it so hard that there has to be done something. So they closed down everything for 48 hours. I think tomorrow morning it's going to be resumed, but it will be resumed in an organized manner from the other side. So we will hopefully see more good and normal scenes soon, inshallah.
So what about these recent stories that have come up in the news of executions, shooting at protesters, or hunting for certain individuals who are on the run and things like that? Well, 2 questions. One, is it happening? Second, why? Is it happening? If not, then how is this news getting out? I mean, these are being reported by CNN, MSNBC, and these mainstream media organizations. So what can we make?
I would just take one moment and let Brother Sid and Dr. Nassimi also comment. First of all, with a revolutionary change of this magnitude, that the whole country collapsed. I mean, the army and everything, and Taliban were all, they were surprised. They were shocked how easy and how fast, and peaceful the things went up. And yes, of course, with that huge change, there are examples of some rogue elements, some chaotic scenes here and there, but nowhere in a mass organized manner at all. yes, there have been reports, especially when the country's independence celebration day happened, right after Taliban took over. I think 2-3 days after that, and this is the national holiday that for decades the country has been celebrating in every regime. So in that one, some elements wanted to take advantage and protest and raise the old flag, and in there some nervous elements and low-level elements of Taliban could not take it, could not control, and they were under the impression that this is now an unrest and something uprising, and there were shootings. There were even some people lost their lives, but very limited, very few. And soon the leadership took control and they announced that we will not ban the flag, the old flag. We will not ban any protest. We will not ban any celebration of the Independence Day. And probably in a matter of 48 hours, that situation was also controlled. In terms of going after targeted people, yes, it has happened. It has happened, but it has been extremely limited, one. Number two, it's some elements that even now within some low-level Taliban, it's extremely hard. As a fact, we should say this. It is extremely hard to control every single person until they have a little bit more organized institutions. So yes, it has happened, but they have controlled it very soon, and it's not widespread. It's not that. Even some ministers started coming back to their work. Some deputy ministers, a lot of the governors. The governor where I come from, the Eastern Nangarhar, the former governor is sitting next to the new governor, and they are running the affairs day to day, hand in hand, because he has the experience and they are using his experience. And this is happening in many other institutions and places. Dr. Naseem.
Anything you want to add, Dr. Naseem or Sister?
Yeah, I think Imam Kakar covered it mostly, all of the things that should be mentioned. I think there are other things happening that are not reported, which is very important in terms of services, government services. For example, power. Electricity. Electricity has been a major issue in the last 20 years or more of the country. And I was there last year, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. Every year, every time we went to most of Kabul, they had electricity for a few hours. And for at least like 10 hours, 9 hours, 8 hours, 20 hours, some places they did not have electricity. But for the last 7 days, many of my relatives, they say that for the first time, we have electricity 24 hours. For the first time, and one girl said, since I have grown up, I have never seen electricity more than 4 hours, 5 hours in our house, now 24 hours. So what's happening? Maybe some reason, some factor could be that some factories are not active or some places are not active, but most of the power were directed towards certain governmental figures that they wanted to use that, and then they cut off the power from residential areas of people. And now all that power is going to serve people. So there are such reports, but also, yes, there were a few cases that some of my relatives said that, in some Taliban has come to some house and asked some questions and interrogated some individuals. I sent them that one of the flyers that said that, if anybody comes to your house, it's not us. And there was a phone number. So I said, call them and find out. We also want to find out if they are truthful to their claims. Two of them did not report back, but one of them reported back and said that there was a report that there are some guys doing something against Taliban, and there was a report that there are few people from security of previous powers in Khair Khana, they were trying to do something against them, and so they went to find out if that's true or not. That was the purpose of their visit.
Okay. So
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sister
A
Nassim.
little bit. Right now, they're under radar of every media news, and all they're looking for is something negative. Like Dr. Nassimi said, nothing good is said. Do you know that a week ago we had suicide bombers and everything? It became such an indifferent news. It didn't even make it to the news that it was happening during the Ashraf Ghani presidency. There was like people, thousands and people were killed every day. There was looting, robbing, everything, such a insecurity. But we should not expect from them within a week to have everything under control. But I'm really impressed for how much they have done so far. Let's go to the positive part of them that they have done so far. Let's not, I mean, everybody, all the media I hear, they're looking somewhere to find somebody. Oh, this was beaten. Okay, when you find out there's a thief, okay. Also that there are corruption everywhere. That happens everywhere. And also in the airport, they're always saying that Taliban are shooting in the air, but they never say that also the US military is using the tear gas. Well, they have to, because they are both of sides are right, because to scatter people, to secure the area, they have to do. But we hear is Taliban is shooting. We never hear that also the military, the US is also using tear gas, but that has to be done.
Okay, so we have maybe two more questions left before we end the program. We have from Naeem Beg. What can American Muslims do for Afghanistan? Dr. Dawood, you want to take this one?
An excellent question. So as Muslims, alhamdulillah, first we believe in the power of dua, and we all should make dua for the khair of the people of Afghanistan, for in general, for all Muslims, and especially in Afghanistan, what's happening. So we should make dua. And second, we should, reach out to help. Now, the Afghanis who are coming to the United States, there are a lot of efforts by different masajid and Muslims to support them and to help them, give them orientation and help them to establish their lives here. But also in terms of offering services to Afghanistan in the future, I hope that the government will open up itself for all kinds of technological needs, economic needs, other things that Muslims from different parts of the world can extend their offers and share some of the knowledge through all these internet and others, or if they want to go there, I hope that there will be situation and opportunity that we can go there and other Muslims all can go there. And also here, we should try to make sure that especially through our masajid, the accurate reports are passed to people, and through our internet resources that we have. We want to make sure that things are not misleading about the situation in Afghanistan, and also give advices. We can all come up with all kinds of advices and send it to Taliban leadership, because they badly need advices and guidance. Maybe Imam Kakar can add more, inshallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, you covered everything. I wanted to say, the Naeem Beg and everyone else who has this concern and genuine desire to help, we can help in three major areas, three major ways. Now, first one, that a lot of refugees are coming, and Dr. Nassimi just mentioned, it's our responsibility to reach out to them and to connect them to masajid, to connect them to the community, to connect them to the centers. We don't want to lose them and lose their children. And a lot of Christian, institutions and places and others are involved, even Sikhs and Hindus and others. So whatever happened, why they came here, whether they should have come or not, that's a completely, totally different discussion. But now they are here or coming in the future, we should be active in every way as collectively. And I would even call on leaders like Brother Naeem Beg and others, that we can come up with a national symposium or national institution, something like that we should do as a whole, not like a small group here and there. They can render some services, but we can probably create, and this is my idea, inshallah, to discuss with Dr. Nasimi and others, to create a task force that will include all these different organizations that we can, inshallah, serve these refugees. Secondly, like Dr. Nasimi said, to be active in educating people here as what is happening, and portray the actual true real image of what is happening. And third, to try to provide services in terms of education, and reaching out to Taliban through many different channels. There are good relationships they have with Qatar. They have started to have good relations with Turkey now, and there is a good chance, a good possibility that through these channels we can leverage that they should not let the country fail again. And this is unimaginable, to have the country fail one more time. It's not in the interest of anyone, especially the Muslims, especially the Ummah. So we have to come up with ideas, with solutions, with papers and studies and things to present to them. And lastly, we should also urge as much as we can neighbors and other powers to please do not meddle in the affairs of enough is enough. Whoever has done what, I'm not pointing fingers to any particular neighbor or power or anything, but we can do a lot through media and through many things. That please let Afghans decide their own fate. Please don't meddle in their affairs.
If I can add a little bit, I'm sorry, that one that they can help. They can also explain Sharia to non-Muslims that have really bad understanding about it. If they can explain to them that what Sharia is, so we'll know it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so that concludes our webinar. So we want to really thank all the speakers for coming and sharing their insights and their experiences and their knowledge. Hopefully, we hope that everyone benefited, and please help us spread this message to other for your friends and your families and the general public. We want to get the word out for people who are Afghans who have connections with the country, who talk to their relatives on the ground on a daily basis. So we wanted to get an insight from them. So I think this has been very fruitful. So we hope everyone enjoyed the webinar. And last point, please support our work. As you know, we do this completely free. We try to have webinars on real issues that are affecting the world today, in order to come together to try to make this world a better place. Your website is downstairs. You see the website on the bottom, icnasiasha.org/donate. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we will see you again in our next webinar, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.